I think it's something that a child is born into that gives him automatic abilities or advantages over another race.
Racial privilege? I have no idea what racial privilege is.
To me, the idea of racial privilege is a person benefiting either economically or socially due strictly to their ethnic background.
Races privilege over wait, can you start over? Racial privilege is one race dominating over another race.
Racial privilege is an advantage that is gained by being a certain skin color. This advantage allows a race to dominate over others, both intentionally and unintentionally. The advantages that can be gained are things such as jobs, housing, and even how you are treated on a daily basis. At Holderness, it is apparent that white privilege is the norm. This is in large part due to the majority of students and faculty/staff being white. Living in central New Hampshire and being in a state that is 99.1% white, the community experiences the influence of white culture each day. The Holderness community can make minorities feel more welcomed by having more diverse dorms and attempting to bring in more international and national students of color.
I would consider myself white.
I'm African, Ghanaian.
I am white, Caucasian.
Hello, my name is Hannah Foote. I'm Caucasian.
I'm Caucasian.
I would probably say the white student just because everyone here is white.
Privilege?
Yeah.
Whites.
I wouldn't say a better advantage. Obviously the kids who don't have English as their first speaking language, obviously it's going to be tougher for them. But in terms of like race, I would say, I wouldn't say it's different. It'd be difficult for them obviously, but I don't feel that it'll be that big of a difference.
I think you get the same treatment. But then I think others, like people that aren't American, like the typical white, blonde, blue-eyed American, have a different treatment.
Our white students have more of a racial privilege at Holderness because we're predominantly white. I think we can't ignore the fact that our campus is predominantly white.
Throughout our studies and interviews, most of the people think that white students have the most privilege on the campus. Since most of the students and faculty here are white, it is easier for them to blend into the community.
Not exactly. You judge people by their character, not by who you are.
Personally, not in my life, no, neither here nor home.
Not here at Holderness, but definitely at home. Because kids here, almost everyone's the same color of skin I have.
No.
I would say no to that question, mostly because, as everyone knows, the majority of the students here will be white. And back home, even more so, I believe the majority would be white. So no, I'd have to say no to that question.
Okay. In our interviews, we found that students here at Holderness don't experience much or any exclusion due to race. In a survey taken by the school, 88 people out of 113 said they did not feel excluded here at Holderness. At Holderness, there are high standards here that each student is respectful and compassionate towards one another, and that no student should be left behind.
Well, I think a lot about our students of color, especially they're in central New Hampshire. We're in a state that's 99.1% white. When I think about our students of color, for example, I think about how much easier it is if you're a white teenage girl or boy here. It's a whole lot easier to find if you're looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend or significant other. It's a whole lot easier to find someone.
What do you mean by racial issues?
I wouldn't say here at Holderness, no, I don't see that.
I don't think it's really an issue. I just think that it's just what normally happens because you're more comfortable with someone who's from your country and they speak your language, and it kind of just happens that they kind of form like a good friend group for them to, you know, be a part of the school instead of just that little group.
The study shows that there is no any particular racial issue in Holderness. However, it is easier for a particular group that have the same race to get together all the time. Also, Mrs. Farringer mentions that since Holderness has more whites, it may be harder for students of color or any international students to find either a boyfriend or a girlfriend here.
You know, I go back to our international orientation at the beginning of every school year, and by the end of the third day, I see these kids, this year 25 of them, who seemed really comfortable in their new surroundings.
I think that Holderness is doing a good job.
I don't feel like there's any advantages and disadvantages to being certain races. I feel everyone's treated equally in the classroom and in the sports field.
I would hope that we have a community here that's open and wants to get to know people from different places.
I mean, it's a really small, like, tight community.
At Assembly, they do the presentations about kids around the world, which gives them a nice, like, welcoming thing here at Holderness. So, yeah, I would say Holderness does a pretty good job at welcoming new students.
Since it's so small, the community is really, friendly.
Race is a major part of the Big Nine. Racial privilege is seen everywhere. We still live in a world where white privilege is a norm. Each day the gap closes, with the economic struggling and jobs at a minimum, people are losing their privilege. There are some who haven't accepted that racial privilege is branching out. Blacks are now feeling comfortable around whites, unlike back in the day when things were segregated. You see more Asians and Latinos coming to the US attempting to gain the same privilege white have. Racial privilege are advantage gained by someone's skin color, allowing that race is dominate over another.
Prep school is an entirely different world when it comes to race, especially in the region of New England. You see that the schools are predominantly white, and you can breathe and see white privilege around you. From our studies around the Holderness campus, people would say that the privileged group here is the white students. But at the same time, people here try to treat everyone with the same respect. An effect of racial privilege might be the money factor, but even with that said, equality is still around us. The community does a good job at making all kids who are minorities feel accepted. This school is fairly athletic and makes kids play sports, even if it is at the JV or varsity level. This helps those kids who are non-white or minorities develop friendships from the start of school onwards. The O-Hike and O-Canoe help kids who are new and non-white make connections with their peers straight away. The one thing the school can improve on is having a system set up where if your first language isn't English, you can have a tutor help make your English better. It would make it easier for kids from across seas communicate with their peers and build relationships.